Hello everyone. I will be starting with the introduction of Kathmandu itself, because many of you might not be very familiar with the city. So please, next slide. Next. Okay, so the history of Kathmandu. 1.5 million years ago. Now, this is not a history of urban planning or even human settlement, but of the geology and geography coming into shape. Eurasian and Indian plateau were colliding heavily that time, and the Mahabharata region, the hill region, was forming rapidly. So the thick forest that was the Kathmandu region slowly converted into a big lake, because the rivers that were flowing were blocked by the rising hills. It's a very interesting thing. But so many people who know about Kathmandu and are interested know that it was once a lake. But this history I'm telling you is before it was a lake. It was a thick forest converted into a lake, and you come to 30,000 years ago, and then this water which was trapped slowly starts going out from the fissures of rock formations. And it's said that there's a mythical figure called called Manjushri, who led this making it more habitable by draining out the water, because it was thought to be a very livable place with high agricultural potential and so on. And you come to 10,000 years ago. Now the water started receding from 30,000. It took 20,000 years to human settlement starting in that place. And you come to 500 BC. Now the first, let's say, the city starts forming with dynasty ruling over, and citizens and trade starting with Tibet and India, I guess Vaishali kingdom in the south. And then you come to 1100 AD, and then the placemaking starts with Malla dynasty, which if you visit Kathmandu, I don't have the exact figure, but I'm almost sure that more than 60% of what you see, the ancient structures, has been constructed during Malla dynasty, which no more rules, because we are not a kingdom, and even the king that was there was not from this dynasty. This is like an ancient dynasty. Please, next slide. So I'll quickly run through, because I took more time in the last slide. So history of placemaking, to be more specific, so we have, as I said, Malla dynasty started making this, courtyard systems with palace squares, with a lot of fountains in the middle, statues, and network of ponds and canals, and large open spaces. So in our language, in Nepali, we say Tunikhel, which is like a big parade ground, which was once the largest in the whole Asia. So it has 2,000-year-old rich history. With this has been documented by researchers in Kathmandu, who have been given their lives for this kind of documentation. So please, next slide. So the current status is that the large parade ground, which was the largest in Asia, has been encroached upon heavily, and there is this Occupy Tunikhel movement, which is the very recent actually, where it is told to be a spontaneous movement with a lot of ex-prime ministers also, and famous media people and other socialites and even actors and so on. Please, next slide. So these were the demonstrations. This is less than a year old actually. So it happened in Kathmandu. Several movements, people gathered, and please, next slide. Okay, so this was the original parade ground. You can see with a pond here, which was built by a king to dedicated to his wife when she was very, sad due to loss of a child. So you can see continuously, sometimes military is making its something here, some other offices are built, and the large public spaces now this much, reduced from let's say, I don't have the statistics, but you can clearly see 20% of what it was. Please, next slide. So this was the whole history of Kathmandu and what placemaking and movements are going on. I'll jump right away to a uh, urban network analysis tool which I want to introduce, and its potential and its viability to placemaking. Um, so just briefly going through, I know a lot of you here are architects, but some of others might not be. So conceptualizing spatial measures. So we take into account links, which are basically road lengths, nodes, which are basically intersections, and then buildings. So please, next slide. So urban network analysis tool was developed by MIT's lab in Singapore back in around, I think, 2012. It's you can say it's like a southern to space syntax, if I use the Hindi word. So there's a space syntax which is developed by UK, and there is urban network analysis which is developed by MIT. Now what it does, it has several UNA metrics: reach, straightness, gravity, betweenness. Now I'll just explain one in detail. So reach, if there's a building or a place, so how many other buildings or places you can reach from that. And we use network distance instead of birds flying distance, like as you say, the shortest distance, the virtual straight line. We don't use virtual straight line, which is being still used in many parts by geographers and even engineers, architects, urban designers. They just take a buffer zone, right? But it doesn't. It's not very accurate. It's very misleading in many cases. So this tool, the key takeaway is that it uses like network distances always, which is very accurate in than using shortest distance. So please, next slide. So we can measure accessibility. We can measure like connectivity. Now it will be so precise, and it will help you to actually discern. Okay, if I take let's say example of Pune. So you let's say that Pune was in a mess, like there is no good public spaces, no good streets, and you decide to start with making a street, and you have JM Road, you have DB Road, you have Ferguson Road, if I'm not wrong, right? So how do you prioritize those three streets? You need data, you need quantification. You cannot, as a planner, impose your choice upon the people, right? So betweenness analysis, for example, will calculate how many people pass through any street or node. And you can see the reach of the places there, how many people they are inviting. And this is all without a very elaborate survey. It uses graph theory. So it's a very technical approach. We use ArcGIS, and UNA tool is a free plugin you can download. If you know ArcGIS, you can try out UNA, but you then again need Rhino software, Rhinoceros 3D to really get the analysis done. So please, next slide. So these are the three measures, and briefly, so reach captures how many surroundings each building can reach within a search radius. So you can vary the radius. For example, you take 400 meter radius, which represents around 5 minutes walk. You take 800 meters, which represents around 10 minutes walk, and so on. You can do it as you please. Please, next slide. So how can this be utilized for placemaking? Now that was the introduction for the tool. Okay, so I have just briefly prepared a case study for the core area. The map is not so clear, I guess, but core area of Kathmandu, which is I've taken a 1 kilometer radius, including the parade ground, and there are 6 neighborhoods, very old neighborhoods. Some of them have now converted into educational hub, training institutes, and so on. And some of them are still have campuses, old campuses. There are shopping centers, fun parks. So there is everything that you can think of that is there in a city. And then again, they are heavily still very residential also, some of them. Please, next slide. Okay, so there are 2 approaches that can be done while using the analysis, while doing the carrying out urban network analysis. Now you can choose all buildings as destinations, all buildings as the origins. Now this is just to get a general overview of the connectivity and accessibility of a place. And you can then, okay, please next slide. And okay, so this is the calculation of reach metric 400 meters radius. Now you can see the more warmer the colors, the better the values, which means that these buildings here can reach a lot of places, a lot of other buildings within 400 meters, which is like 5 minutes walk, meaning they are very much accessible and connected to the rest of the neighborhood. So you can, if you are interested in data, like one gentleman was the other day. So average reach value is of 377, which means that on average, buildings in this locality can reach 377 other buildings with a 5-minute walk, which is like, because it's an old city and it's a dense compact settlement. Please next slide. So I'll run through, it's like, so you do the same thing for 800 meters, which represents 10 minutes walk. Next slide. So this represents 20 minutes walk. Now the interesting thing, if you notice is, when it's 20 minutes walk, the center has more connectivity because obviously it benefits from its centrality. Please next slide. So this is the comparison, how it changes with the radius, the values change with the radius. Now it will help you identify, for example, where if you are a finance guy or economics guy who is interested in local economy, and if you are opening a museum, where will you place the museum, the location of it? You will place it where it is very connected with the rest of the neighborhood. So please next slide. So I'll run through, I'm running out of time I guess. So straightness metric, no please backwards, I'll skip this one, but please go one slide back. Yeah, so straightness is a bit different. It tells you the route directness, how much you are deviating from the virtual straight line when you're going from an origin to a destination. So it will help you, for example, this is my opinion, as a localite, straightness metric may not make a lot of sense to you, because you are a localite, you know the place, you can take as much detour as you want, you will not be lost, you know the place, right? But as a visitor, so if your locality is a tourist locality and there are a lot of new visitors, new people coming every day, you want your place to have high straightness values, because there is a certain sense of route directness and people don't get lost, and it's easier to identify your destination. Please next slide. So gravity is a more nuanced version of reach, and it takes into account distance decay effect, like the gravity model that is heavily used in geography and which takes its formula from the gravitational force formula. Please next slide. So this is like different metrics, same radius. As you can see, there's some similarity. This place has warmer colors throughout, like for each metric, but this may not be the case necessarily when you have disjointed networks, because this is heavily compact and uniformly, not uniform network, right? It's very uniformly informally built. So, next slide please. So I'll quickly run through this. Now that was the analysis done where we took all buildings as origins and all buildings as destinations. Now this is, you have particular destinations, right? You have destinations here and you have more destinations over here. Please next slide. So accordingly your result will vary. And if you had your destinations more towards these areas, obviously these would have more warm colors, but like this area dominates again because it has more destinations. Next slide please. Okay, now linking this whole tool, we know that it can be certainly used for placemaking because it can identify locations with basically locations that have advantage due to the network. But how can it be used for, I'll quickly, this is like an idea pitch, but before that, where does Kathmandu stand? It's heavily polluted, especially after the earthquake. We have a lot of debris continuously coming from the ground, and a lot of street widenings going on, reconstructions going on, so it's a lot of dust. And when you compare it to Delhi, you feel nice. That's the interesting thing. So, but it's ranked the 7th most polluted city, and like this statistic is from like 2017, which is not so old. So you can see the you know, the view is very nice. You see the snow-capped mountains, but then you see the dust, and you feel like you will not go there. So, and you see the dust over here. This is a very interesting photograph taken by a colleague. So please, next slide. So what we can do is we can map dust-prone streets first of all, which doesn't require this tool, but and then we can use the network-based distance region which is affected. Now you can take into account, please next slide, the origin and destination of heavy traffic, which generally causes you know, dust to increases the dust in the air, and you can then use that betweenness analysis to retrofit the streets, and you can prioritize it length by length. You can start small, because in Nepal also what government structure we have now is we have the federal government.